today we're going to be going over the best and the worst from the Buccaneers Week 16 loss to the Dallas Cowboys by a score of 26-24, a game that ended up coming down to the wire. I mean, the Bucs had an opportunity to win the game right at the end there with a game-winning field goal. They had an opportunity to drive down. Unfortunately, it did not go their way, and they fall to 8-7 on the season. But joining me today is my CFP co-host, Mr. Rhett Matthew. Rhett, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. A disappointing loss in more ways than one, but the season isn't over yet. So Buccaneers really got to turn around here, set their sights on two tough division opponents, and really just try and bounce back from, again, a disappointing performance, but one that they cannot let take over the rest of their season here.
Yeah, it's sort of, you're right. It is something that they need to sort of put behind them. But with that being said, let's get into the best, and we're going to start off on the offensive side of the ball, and we're going to talk about Bucky Irving. I think Bucky Irving had a nice little day. Was it as explosive as a lot of his days have been? Maybe not. But 16 carries, 68 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Also had 3 catches for 24 yards through the air. So was effective in both the run and pass game. And really, I mean, I think the Bucs probably should have leaned on him more, especially in that first half.
Yeah, you said it. I think one of the big gripes with offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, the lack of rhythm on the offense, is getting away from the run game. In that first half, Bucky only got the ball 8 times, but he was averaging over 6 yards a carry with each of those carries. So I wish they would have held on to the run game a little bit longer. I know they were playing from behind and the sense of urgency was a little bit higher than usual, but this has been one of the most potent rushing attacks in the NFL over the last several weeks, and I think they got away from it a little too soon. But yeah, Bucky definitely a bright spot there in the run game for another week in a row.
Yeah, for sure. One more player I wanted to shout out along the offense was Jalen McMillan. Now, before we get into it, I do know, and you have to note it, right? You have to note the interception, right? The interception on the deep ball there. It's essentially a 50-50 ball that McMillan simply just does not come up with. Needs to come up with that ball, right? I mean, I do think he needs to come up with that ball. That being said, he showed some things that, on Sunday night that I really liked. I thought he had another nice day. Has 4 touchdowns now in his last 3 games. So really starting to heat up in that department. Had 5 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown. And is really stepping up. You know, we're finally starting to see the production out of the Bucs' 3rd-round pick this year. So while he did have that play that he's going to want back, I thought he had a nice day.
Yeah, you got to love the uptick in performance from the rookie wideout, and the timing really couldn't be better here considering the Bucs lose Sterling Shepard in this game with a hamstring injury, so he could potentially be sidelined here for the next game or two. Got to wait and see how that shakes out, but you need Jalen McMillan to step up, and he has done that and then some these last couple of weeks. Still some rookie tendencies, but he'll get over that in time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now let's shift over to the defensive side of the ball. Going to start off on the defensive line. We'll actually have 2 guys here on the defensive line. So we're going to talk about first Vita Vea, who I thought had a pretty good day on Sunday. I just thought he was all over the place, you know, really affecting the run defense as well. Dallas was not able to get really anything going on the ground. And then he makes that critical stop on that 3rd down where, like, if the Bucs had not gotten that stop, the game would have been over right then and there. Like, they wouldn't even have had a chance to potentially kick the game winner. So Vita Vea, I thought, had a really nice day. What did you see out of number 50 there?
Man, he's just a monster. And there were a couple of times where that Dallas offensive line left him unassigned, and he was able to swallow up an opposing running back or two. Had a very strong day. And we expected that, right? We talked about on the game preview show the importance of that interior pressure kind of being the backbone for the Buccaneers pass rush, and we saw exactly why those 2 big guys in the middle are so important. Big number 50 does it for another week in a row. He is one of the NFL's best at making pressure.
He sure is. And speaking of pressure, let's talk about another defensive lineman for the Bucs, and this will wrap up the best category. But talk about Calijah Kancey, who had a half sack. Okay, splits that sack with Yaya Diaby. Only had 2 tackles in this game, but that half sack now puts him in the team lead with 6.5. So a little competition there, I think, brewing between Calijah Kancey and Vita Vea some line mates essentially to see who could potentially lead the team in sacks at the end of the year. Right now, it is Kalijah Kancey. I have really enjoyed to see the progression out of Kancey, especially since this is a guy who didn't play the first couple of games of the season, right? I mean, injuries have been an issue his first 2 years in the NFL, and I think he's starting to become a really, really solid football player.
Man, Vita Vea's role as a veteran on this defensive line, I think, is valuable, but the production we've seen from Kancey, the competition they have had in the sack department this season, this is just an example of two guys getting the best out of one another, and that's exactly what you like to see. I hope to continue to watch Kalijah Kancey develop, and I hope to watch these guys play on this Bucs defensive line for a very long time, because they are just, I think they're making each other better the longer they play next to each other.
I agree. So hopefully the Bucs can keep that duo going for a little bit more here. But let's get on to the worst in this game. Although I will say, let's do an honorable mention first, because I think it's split in the middle, and this is not the first time this happened. But Baker Mayfield, just wanted a quick shout out him. There were some plays that you're like, wow, it's a great play. There are some plays where it's like, man, what are you doing, right? And that's like the ultimate Baker Mayfield experience. Finishes with a good box score. I mean, you're going to look at the box score and you're going to see over 300 passing yards, even, 42 rushing yards for Baker Mayfield, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But when you watch the game, it's clear that he needs to be better. But let's get into the worst, okay? And going to talk about Sterling Shepard. I don't mean to kick a man while he's down, right? He gets hurt in this game, does not return, was ruled out pretty quickly after the hamstring injury. But he drops a critical play, right? A critical play early in this game. It's 4th and 3. The Buccaneers decide to go for it after Dallas kicked a field goal in their opening drive. And Baker Mayfield finds Sterling Shepard wide open, who, if Shepard catches it, he might actually run for a little bit there. And he drops it. Bucs turn the ball over on downs, and Dallas scores a touchdown on that ensuing drive. So 10-0 lead for Dallas pretty quickly there. Sterling Shepard had a day to forget, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a guy that, with Jalen McMillan earlier, we've talked time and time again about the importance of wide receivers being able to step up. Sterling Shepard, one of those sure-handed veterans and a welcome, familiar target for Baker Mayfield, just didn't step up when he needed to against Dallas on Sunday. And yeah, those are 2 back-breaking drops. You're talking about drive killers from Sterling Shepard. He's got to be better than that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, look, there is a lot of blame to go around, right, on this offense. And we can mention Rachaad White because, look, it is a critical fumble in that spot. He's got to have more awareness than that, right? He simply has to have more awareness than that. I didn't really want to put him on the worst list because, look, he was an effective pass catcher for them, right? 7 catches for 50 yards. But at the end of the day, his mistake ended the game, essentially.
Yeah, it's a tough break, and it's a situation he's been in before. The fans are going to be looking for someone to blame at the end of the game, and that's the last play the Buccaneers had on offense, and they fumbled it away. There's no other way to look at it. An impressive play by the defensive back, but you got to have higher awareness. You got to hang on to the football, and really, you got to give your team a chance to win, because as much as we're talking about the mistakes made in that game, when he had the football in his hands on that play, on that final offensive series for the Bucs, they still had a chance to win that football game. And unfortunately, they just couldn't close it out.
Yeah. But let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. And we're just going to basically be pretty basic with this one. Bucs tackling. Bucs had a tough night tackling against the Cowboys. It was bad, right? And it nearly, we talked about Vita Vea earlier. We talked about that 3rd down play. And it was because Vita Vea had to make the stop because it was a missed tackle by Christian Izien. So tackling has been an issue all year for this team, but I think in this game in particular, it really was highlighted.
Yeah, absolutely. And the tackling issues the Buccaneers have are the type that allow a 5-yard completion to turn into a 20-yard completion, or a 10-yard completion to turn into an 18-yard touchdown. Things like that are going to kill you. And you can look at coaching. I think injuries are going to play a factor here, but the execution has to be better. Todd Bowles can put his guys in a situation, but the Bucs might get a penalty if Todd Bowles is on the field trying to tackle these other players. So the guys who are available, they have to step up and do their jobs. And tackling has it's been an issue all season long. The Bucs are towards the bottom of the NFL rankings when it comes to missed tackles this year. It's been rough.
Yeah, it is not pretty, and hopefully it's something that can improve down the stretch here, but we'll see. And the last player I'm going to put on the worst list is the player that, I don't think we'd ever put on this list. I mean, really, because hasn't really deserved it, right? To be honest with you, like it hasn't really been a time where I feel like he deserved it. But Lavonte David. Lavonte David struggled in this game, made some plays as a Lavonte David will, right? Had 8 total tackles, but really struggled in pass coverage. Dallas was clearly targeting him. They could tell that, he can't quite run in pass coverage the way he used to. I think they used that to their advantage. So definitely a game that I think 54 is going to want to put behind him. And I have confidence that he will. But it was one to forget for Lavonte David.
Absolutely. And that's really the first time maybe ever I have seen that from Lavonte David. And that's unfortunate. I think that is indicative of some of the things that he just simply can't do as well as he used to. And again, that is age working against him. We've talked about his inability to turn and burn like he used to. I've never seen an opposing offense target him and pick on him the way that Cooper Rush and the Cowboys were able to do. Now, I think that's going to be something to think about here at the end of the season when you think about his long-term playing future. That's kind of been a hot topic these last couple of weeks here, but 2 big games ahead. He is a classy veteran. He's been a team captain and the backbone of this Buccaneers defense for many years, so he will certainly put this game behind him and try to play his best ball here to close out the year.
And, a quick PSA to any Bucs fans. We don't know if this is it for Lavonte David, right? So kind of whether it's 2 games, right, when the Bucs, end the season, or if it's 2 games and the Bucs make the playoffs, or whatever, sort of cherish these, right? Because you really don't know. We're closer to the end than we are at the beginning. So it's a year-to-year thing, and you just don't know. So one of the Buccaneer all-time greats could potentially be playing his last game as a Buccaneer coming up here. So, don't take it for granted. And Lavonte David, I'm sure, is going to have a bounce-back performance against the Carolina Panthers. But let us know what you guys think. Who are your best? Who are your worst? Do you guys agree with our list? Do you disagree? Would you have anybody else in the best? Would you have anybody else in the worst? Is there anything that you noticed that maybe we didn't mention? Let us know in the comment section below. We're always curious to hear. But thank you all for watching. We hope you have a happy holidays. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And go Bucs.